Starfield and No Man's Sky are in direct competition for the space exploration genre, and while the genre may be the same, the way each has approached that is very different. So in this video, here's a full comparison of the two games, from their gameplay and story to specific elements like their combat, graphics, base building, and much more. As always, you won't find any spoilers here, but stick around to see the biggest differences and ultimately which is best. First up then, the story, which in both games is all about uncovering mystery, while also providing some structure to your exploration. A big difference though is how in No Man's Sky you're mostly on your own, a lone traveller, with the storyline itself being delivered in a very bare bones way. There's no real dialogue or character interactions, but rather short paragraphs of text. It leaves lots to the imagination. Starfield on the other hand gives us the expected AAA story experience, with extensive dialogue options that often impact the storyline. You can also negotiate and persuade characters to get what you want, or choose to just use force.
The vault has to stay closed.
12 seconds later.
There's a lot going on with Starfield's narrative. From the very beginning you can choose your character's background, which impacts available dialogue in some scenarios. You'll also have to manage personal relationships and your crew, while factions and even religion options add further depth to the universe. That said, No Man's Sky is no slouch when it comes to backstory and lore. There's 3 main alien races that act as factions. You can increase your standing level with each for cheaper trading, reduced hostility, and even back up against pirates. There's also plenty of side missions and sub-stories, just as there are in Starfield, and talking of the missions themselves, these are also very different between games. No Man's Sky's missions are generally more simple, moving you around a lot to encourage exploration. You'll often run into something interesting and get completely sidetracked. Starfield, however, has very intricately crafted missions, with sometimes tens of mini checkpoints just to get you through one objective. Most of what you see and do is precisely as intended by the developers. This allows the narrative to feel often movie-like with incredible atmospheres, although it does hurt the sense of freedom slightly. Talking of freedom, a big part of that is the game world. Starfield has just over 1,000 planets for you to explore, whereas No Man's Sky boasts over 18 quintillion, 2 very different numbers. Both achieve this by using procedural generation tech, although the approaches are very different. In No Man's Sky, nearly everything is procedurally generated, the landscapes, animals, and even the plants. Some POIs are standard and will appear on every planet, but still show some really good variation, settlements for example. Starfield, however, has a pretty decent number of handcrafted locations like New Atlantis and Neon, with the bigger ones feeling like they could almost be standalone game worlds. Some of these are seriously impressive and incredibly detailed, with their own residential and commercial districts and even a transport system for players to use. Unfortunately though, the pretty big areas that are between these main places are often very barren, with sometimes very little to look at. This probably isn't helped by the fact that only 10% of planets have life on them. In No Man's Sky, there's interesting creatures and plants nearly everywhere you go. This just isn't the case in Starfield. The artistic style is also very different, with Starfield going for absolute realism at every turn with a rather muted colour palette, while No Man's Sky opts for bright colours and a lesser focus on realism. Now before we move on, if you do plan on picking up either of these games, or any game for that matter, you can grab 10% off from gamavo.com by using code AGR10. They're rated excellent on Trustpilot and have round-the-clock customer support, so your game purchases are safe with them. You can find the links to both of these games in the description. But back to the comparison with no further waffle. Graphically, both can be very impressive and with that very power hungry. Starfield only runs at 30 frames a second on Xbox, and you'd better have a good GPU if you want to play it on PC. A common performance complaint with No Man's Sky is the pop-in as you enter a planet. Pretty unavoidable. How does Starfield deal with this? Well, it doesn't, which leads me on to how Starfield's game world feels rather fragmented in comparison to No Man's Sky. Whenever you take off or land, that's a cutscene. Going between planets within a system, another cutscene. Entering any decent sized indoor area, no, not a cutscene but a f***ing loading screen. Now all this has been done for a reason. The game is clearly hard enough to run already. That said, it does take away from the sense of freedom. You almost question if this open world is a bit of a clever illusion. Compared to No Man's Sky then, it does just lack that bit of immersion from it not being completely seamless. When you go from playing No Man's Sky to Starfield, it's really noticeable. Starfield does pull things back though when it comes to ground combat, and it is worth mentioning that combat is a much larger part of the game in Starfield than it is in No Man's Sky. Starfield boasts a ton of weapons from shotguns to laser rifles, with weapon-specific modifications also available to research and then craft. Combat is given some extra depth with items like mines and grenades, and if you choose to have an NPC companion, they can fight alongside you with any weapon you give them. There's some nice detail too, like how ballistic weapon recoil will actually throw you backwards if you're fighting in zero gravity. No Man's Sky on the other hand launched with next to no combat functionality. Nowadays it's definitely there, with a few weapon variations used to fight off hostile sentinel robots. There's no fine tuning for your gun though, and ground combat is rather rare unless you go looking for it. That said, it is something that's improving, with recent updates bringing new enemy types, although I do wonder if this game's age rating is putting a bit of a ceiling on how good the combat can get. When it comes to space combat, No Man's Sky is much stronger, with a few upgradable ship weapons to use in a dogfight, as well as shield recharging to think about. You can also recruit up to 4 pilots to come to your aid at a push of a button, and you can also stumble upon big space battles with massive freighters involved. That said though, this is nothing compared to the depth of Starfield space combat. Each ship requires power for its 3 weapon systems, as well as its engine, shield and gravity drive, and you're in control of how much power to allocate to each one at any one time. This adds some strategy to every battle, and it even goes further than that. When you lock onto an enemy ship, you can decide which systems to target, take out their lasers if your shields are struggling, or blow up their engines if you want to board the ship. Yes, you can be a proper space pirate. Oh, but after a cutscene. Talking of ships in general, this is a big part of both games and another difference. In No Man's Sky, you're always on the lookout for cool looking ships that are of a decent class, whereas in Starfield you can buy pretty much any old ship and customize it into exactly what you want, or just build one from the ground up. The shipbuilding system is seriously impressive. It's pretty much like building a base that's gonna fly. There's loads to consider too, like the crew capacity, its weight, engine power, weapons and even shields. The only answer No Man's Sky really has to this is its freighter, huge ships that let you fly your smaller ones into them, and you can also build a base within them. If you like exploring, you can very easily use one of these as your main base, but it can't really compete with Starfield shipbuilding. On the topic of bases, base building is another big element in both of these games. Both actually have very similar systems for it, requiring blueprints to be unlocked before you can craft anything other than the basic components. If I had to summarise the differences, I'd say No Man's Sky is more geared for building something that's visually exactly what you want, while Starfield will get you something that functions exactly how you want, in terms of being useful for farming resources and how this can be automated. For example, in Starfield you can link the resources made at your different outposts with trade links, and then have your external storage automatically filled by mining units. Meanwhile in No Man's Sky you can build a crazy underwater base and even create the music that will be played when you walk in. Of course, both games can do both of these things, but that's the general trend. It's very hard to say that one's always going to be better than the other, and it depends what you're interested in. The updates and support are another big comparison point for any game really, and Hello Games have quite honestly produced a masterclass for how to revive a game and then keep people coming back with No Man's Sky, and big updates are still rolling out regularly with no sign of stopping. And don't forget that this whole comparison is a bit of a David versus Goliath situation. Hello Games has less than 50 employees, and Bethesda has over 400. It's still very much early days for Starfield, but most importantly is its proper support for modding. As we've seen with games like GTA and Assetto Corsa, a strong modding community can hugely benefit a game's longevity and also its replayability. If you play on PC and enjoy customizing your game experience, it's a strong argument for Starfield. Now before our conclusion, here are a few more things that deserve a quick mention. First up, online, which in Starfield doesn't exist and in No Man's Sky is now very good. There's an entire online hub called the Anomaly, which you can summon to pick up co-op missions and find other players. You can also explore the entire universe with friends and visit each other's bases and ships. The second one is VR, which again only No Man's Sky has, but it's getting seriously impressive as more updates roll out, and it's also available on PSVR 2 as well as PC. Both games are also cross-platform, which is great to see, however Starfield is Xbox and PC exclusive. Overall then, this is a tough one. Each game has its strong and weak areas, with some aspects being approached so similarly that it's hard to say which one is objectively best. So it really depends on what you enjoy in a game. For some players, the less guided, very exploration heavy approach of No Man's Sky is just not for them. I see some comments saying they struggle to see the point of playing. In this regard, No Man's Sky is a bit like Minecraft. It's up to the player to go and find the fun, but there is so much to be had. Starfield on the other hand serves everything right to you with very tangible progression. You'll start with an action-packed story and eventually begin exploring more, building up a bit of a resource and trade empire. If you want to be a space pirate or love that movie-like story element, Starfield is your game. Enjoy survival or want to explore planets that no other player has, No Man's Sky has the better offering. Equally, if you prefer that raw graphical realism, then Starfield is the more cinematic experience. However, No Man's Sky counters this with completely seamless space travel. Trust me, it does masses for immersion. So that's all for this video. I hope the comparison has given you a good idea of what each game has to offer without being too opinionated, so you can decide for yourself which one is better, objectively or just for your own taste. But that's everything, so thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one.